welcome to Muscatine in Focus. We have two special guests today. The first one is City Talk by Lieutenant Jeff Eurak, and our next one is Santos Saucedo for our city segment. And I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Jeff Jirak. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes,
Pleasure being here.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And today you're going to be talking about the Diversion Program. So before we get to that, could you talk about a quick intro of who you are?
Name is Jeff Jirak, a lieutenant here with the Muscatine Police Department, and I have been blessed with being here in Muscatine it'll be 30 years come July this year.
All right. Wow. Very good, very good. And so talk to me a little bit about the Diversion Program. When did it start in Muscatine, and is there many diversion programs in the United States of America?
Sure. So the Diversion Program really came about back in late 2017, and it was an informal meeting where actually Santos, Saucedo and I were down at the holiday stroll here in Muscatine, and we got into an informal discussion about what can we do for juveniles for the city of Muscatine, keeping them out of trouble. Just programs leading them in the right direction. Come to find out a little bit later on that this was one of the city council's goals at the time in order to help juveniles, and it was part of the strategic planning with the city and the Safe Community program that we had through city council. So with that, we kind of put our heads together, and I started reaching out to a number of agencies, of which one was the Juvenile Court Services here in Muscatine, which I cannot say enough good things about, and their leadership with this and their resources on where to go. And with that, we ultimately were led to Georgetown University, and they already had a national program in place that had a lot of great statistics with it that we basically piggybacked off of, and from there was the development and the implementation of our juvenile diversion program.
Very nice. Would you be able to share, is there like any success stories with individuals that do go through the diversion program?
Well, unfortunately, we only have a very small amount of time, and we have enormous amount of successes with this. Statistically proven to show on one of those is that nationally, we're talking about kids that may have made a bad choice or two as a juvenile, and they came in contact with police. The total, or one of the main focuses of the juvenile diversion program, is to take this person, give them some instruction, formal instruction. They then have to go through kind of a little bit of a testing process, and then because of that, they don't have what we would call a black mark on their record. They could go into a job interview, or an application later on in life, and technically they haven't been arrested, that they have gone through a diversion program and have since then made right choices. And we're only talking about cases that are minor in nature, simple misdemeanors and below. Because of that, we have had the opportunity to work with, to date, since August 1st of 2018 to the present, we've only had to work with about 182 kids.
Okay.
Now that may seem like a lot, but nationally, we're very fortunate with that. The national average for people staying out of trouble once they have gone through this program is about 75% that kids have chosen to stay out of trouble. We are very fortunate because of our program. Since then, we have about an 80%, or 8 out of 10 kids decide that they don't want to really get in trouble or see that there's a better future. Back to your question, do we have success stories? We have several with all of that. One specifically being, I know these kids personally before they came into the program, worked with them during the program, and have since kept up with them after the program. Kids are graduating high school. They are actively involved in their church. They are actively involved in sports, and they have not been in any trouble or have made bad decisions since then. And that's just one. There are several that are just like that.
So it kind of, if you will, gives them a second chance then. They do something which is not as severe. So instead of it being part of their record for a long time, you give them a chance. Be like, hey, take this program, and therefore it's not a part of their mark in the future, basically.
And that's exactly it, and that's based off of, again, this Georgetown University model where, identifying juveniles who, may have made a wrong decision, and we want to give them a second chance. It is certainly not a get out of jail free card. We are certainly not just giving these kids a slap on the hand and go do better next time. They sit down in a structured environment. They have to complete tasks. They have to verbally and in writing give answers to stuff. And it's pretty intensive for a short period of time. And what I love out of this program the most is that in order for them to graduate this and have this process go through, they have to be accompanied by a parent. And as we have found, and it is no secret, that parental involvement with kids from a very early age up till later on when they become adults and even after is vital to the kids making right decisions and staying basically out of trouble.
No, that's great. And you kind of touched on just a second ago, but how can we as a society and as parents decrease the likelihood of our children getting into trouble from the perspective that you're talking about?
And with that question, being a parent myself, there is no perfect answer. And like the article or the advertisement on the radio, there is no such thing as a perfect parent. But what we can be as parents is as much involved in our kids' lives as we possibly can. Going to ball games, sitting with them at the supper table and having a conversation with them about their day. If they have questions about anything, their career, classroom activity, what should I do, to be better at soccer, whatever it may be, we might not have the right answer. I know I always don't.
Right.
But being there to provide an answer is vital. It's a support system. It is where somebody that your child can rely back on, as opposed to somebody that probably has made bad decisions, which we wish we could help, but there are, sometimes people that give bad advice. And with that, it compounds itself. We base that as well onto when I grew up. I'm a little bit older than you, Mayor, but when I grew up, we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have social media. And, as a parent, we are dealing with that constantly. There's a lot of great stuff, but there's also a lot of very bad stuff. And there's a lot of rabbit holes that kids go down. So to answer your question is, I narrowed it down in my 30 years of doing this job, is this parental involvement, strong parental involvement. And with that, limiting and being very conscious of what your kids are looking at on social media, and I say a smartphone, and that could be across a wide spectrum of sites.
No, that makes sense. Last question is there basically anything else you want to share that, to your audience that you have right now on TV to kind of what we just talked about? Anything else you'd like to share?
Sure. Summer's upon us. What happens during the summertime? Kids get out of school and they have a lot of downtime. Kids want to fill their downtime with, again, back to social media. And I'm not here to say that it's all bad, because there's a lot of good. There's a lot of programs out in the community. We have an extremely supportive community here, from City Council, who was heading this program from the get-go up until now. It is a huge success story for our city. I have seen over the years gang problems here in Muscatine, of which have significantly been reduced, not just because of police efforts, but because of the community's efforts. With those programs that are involved, from the Community Wise to our faith-based organizations through our schools, as a parent, get involved with your kids' lives. Be there for them, and I guarantee you, we're not all perfect, but good things are going to happen here in Muscatine as a result of that.
Hey, that's well said. I appreciate it, and thank you so much, Lieutenant, for your time. And next we have Santos that will be on the TV show. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now we're on our segment, Our City, and we have Santos Saucedo, who is extremely involved in our community and our county as well. So welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And first, I'm just going to start off by, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself,
Sure,
your
sure.
family,
Yep.
background, where you come from, and where do you work?
Okay. So I am the smallest of 8 children, and now I have 5 children of my own and 5 grandkids. And I was born in Houston, Texas, but moved here at 1 month old. So I'm a Muscatine resident for my entire life, if you want to say. And I work at the county board as a board supervisor, and I also work at Bayer here in Muscatine, Iowa, as well too, as a project manager.
How long have you been serving in government for?
So in 2015, I was elected for city council at large in Muscatine, and I was able to serve there from since then. And then in 2019, I was elected for the county board of supervisors as District 1.
Very good, very good. So we just heard from Lieutenant Eurak about the diversion program. Can you talk to me about the history that you and the lieutenant, he kind of touched on a little bit, but kind of your story, your version of it?
Well, part of that diversion program started when we initially had our goals with the city, and part of the goals obviously is this is what's nice about city council is you then set the long-term vision, and I think that's always something that I've enjoyed as a city and a county is setting goals to kind of try to get further out and have foresight a little bit of our future. And obviously our youth are our future, and so to me it was really looking at how do I create a program or look at ways that we can divert the people and the children into a better system, and I didn't know how to do that. So I can tell you this right now, it was just something that we knew that we wanted to try to improve our youth and our community. And I think it was either in an off meeting or at the what was that called, the Christmas walk, I think is where we ran into
The holiday stroll.
the holiday
Yes.
stroll. And I think that's where he ended up kind of getting more in depth of it, because he knew the involvement that I had in the community, and that's how we just started kind of just having those conversations. And throughout those conversations, he really knew that I was passionate about wanting to see that program come to fruition. And so I shared with him, what do we got to do? How do we make this happen? The more he shared with me, the more I started reaching out to other council members, the mayor at the time, and saying, hey, this is a program that I think it meets our goals. I tied them all both in together and let them see the same vision that I was seeing. And I said, this is almost like a turnkey thing that's just in the end, it's going to help us long term, but it's just, we just need to support it, work through the juvenile programs, kind of going in, talking to the judges, seeing with the school districts, and then seeing the same vision that we had. And I think it was just aligning all of those groups together. And looking back at it now, I think it's just a great program that we can continue to see the success from it. But it was just a seed back then, I think in 2017 or 18 when we started it.
Sure. You kind of touched on 3 different entities right there, which kind of goes back to our meeting a couple months ago, is school, city, and county.
Correct.
That joint commission meeting
Yes.
that we had, and that was amazing to have everybody at the table up on the top floor of the Merrill, collaborating, working together, and talking about some goals that we all have with each other for our community.
Correct. I think the positiveness of something of that nature is allowing to see everybody's vision, and sometimes do they align with some of them, which we hope they do, because they are the 3 taxing bodies for the Muscatine. But the connections that we slowly started to build, the juvenile programs, which is in the county, the city, which is obviously part of what the city council was at that time for the diversion, and then the school boards, which was also a connection for the youth in the community. So that was a great connection that we slowly started to build some of those conversations and team efforts. So yes.
Great, yeah, thank you. And I know that both of us have been working on the housing, and you've been working on the housing concept for longer than I have. Can you just share a little bit about your vision and where you'd like to see the housing?
So when I was in city council, I had grew extremely frustrated when I started to hear more of the amount of 5,000, 8,000, almost 10,000 people that come to work in Muscatine that actually just work, and then they travel back outside of the city. An extreme frustration for me, because I knew that those were dollars that could be spent economically, that could be pushed into housing, and then a lot of them just didn't have a place to live. And so in 2000, probably 17, 18, that was when I started. We got the housing study done with the city. And the more information that I saw, the more I was like, well, we got to do something. How do we do something? And it really wasn't anything there. So in the county, I had an opportunity to sit in the bi-state meeting, and I was able to see what a group that they called a program called Silos to Solutions. And that was in 2019, 2020 on the county. And that group was basically the concept is everybody works in their silos, but nobody works towards a solution. It's kind of really what it said. And the program really just, it almost like turned a light on to me, like, wow, this is basically everything that we're doing right now we need. And so then I share that same vision with other county board members, community foundation, kind of started reaching out to the economic chamber, and I started saying, how do we implement something like this? And that was really the beginning seed of creating the housing council. And that whole development has flourished now into a broader program that has allowed us to break off into other branches, that has given us the opportunity to bring an IEDA, the revitalization program for the housing downtown, the new expansions that we're starting to see in the housing that we're seeing in the county, from Wheelie to housing in Wilton to now housing in Muscatine too. So the housing council also, again, similar to city council, set agenda, set goals, set extremely hard goals at first, and now that we're surpassing them, it kind of makes me think that where our vision could have been even further. And we're duplicating the same programs in West Liberty, and we're having the same conversations in Wilton, because I really believe that the county as a whole needs to grow. When we start looking at those 8,000 plus to 10,000 that are living outside of the county, those dollars could be spent right here. And so how do we do that? Instead of increasing taxes, how do we end up possibly decreasing that by providing more homes for people to live here and work here? And I think that's really the goal and the vision for what the Housing Council has done. And I think that when we get more people to see us, we get more developers, more investors, more people will want to come in here. And I think that will just create more economic development, the sports complex, the new health clinic. It creates just a momentum that it's almost like a train that is just built up with more and more motors and diesels engines that people are going to want to jump on, and we're going to want to say, hey, why did we miss it?
Right. I
want to make sure that we're continuing to feed that. And I think that's the vision that the Housing Council has only kind of spawned off into more things that you're seeing. And it's fantastic. It's a great vision, but it was nothing that I think I just helped develop some of that vision with the other team members that really have done a lot of the work.
You know, I have to say, you mentioned We Lead, and right away I think of Kenneth. You know, I mean, that guy is on fire with just being creative and making it work.
Right.
You know, for the county, and most definitely West Liberty. So
correct. So
yeah.
But that's you know, when you start surrounding yourself with visionaries that have the same type of mindset, that look at saying, how do we look 5 years from now? And if we're going to be 5 years from now and we say, okay, is it that difficult to say that in 5 years from now we need to have 2,500 more homes in Muscatine? Is it too much to say when we start saying, when we're already saying, when we first started it, we knew that there was only like maybe 50 new homes. And we said, well, let's just set a goal for like 100. And we surpassed it. And then when we start saying, well, then what if we do 500? And now we're almost approaching that with all the number of units. And so then now I'm thinking, well, why don't we just do 5,000? And you know that when you see that growth, it becomes contagious. You have the ability to have more contractors that want to be here. You have more suppliers. You have more businesses that want to develop here. You have more people that want to work here and live here, and that just creates that growth momentum. And I think that it's really been a positive outlook, and we're going to be having a housing council coming up here June 7th that we're excited to continue to just feed that momentum is really what our hope is.
I appreciate that. Now, one of the things, and I actually came to visit you guys, the Muscatine County Boxing Club.
Correct.
Really cool facility just to go there. And I mean, I don't know how many youngsters there was, but it looked like it ranged anywhere from, I mean, can you talk to me about
Yeah.
what grades it ranges from and the whole purpose?
So we started the program about a little over 10 years ago in my basement, and then my garage, and then about 10 years ago we moved over to 417 Grandview Avenue. It ranges from 7 years old to anyone that is still in high school, 18, sometimes 19, but most of those kids. And if they're in college, then they can continue to come to the program at no cost, as long as they can donate $25 through the community foundation. If they cannot afford it, we don't charge them. It's not, by no means do we want to turn anybody away. The fact that we've been able to get so many youth involved in our programs that are encouraging, them avoiding so much video games, getting out to where they can learn how to have self-esteem, self-confidence. If you did look inside, you can see all of our positive quotes that we have that really encourages them. And I think when you think about, we talked about the diversion program and some of the youth in the community, a lot of the kids were part of the programs that either police, family resources, or kids that were coming to my program that I started seeing, hey, they just need somebody to believe in them.
Right.
They need a mentor. They need somebody that tells them, hey, you can get better, you can do better. We've seen, almost 24 plus kids in the last 10 years that have gone into the military, that graduated, that probably would have never been able to even qualify had they not been in our youth program that allowed them to develop, to build skills. And to me also, some of the positive things that I see out of it is the social skills that they build. The respect, the ability to gain that confidence. And that's huge when you start looking at, youth and getting into high school or trying to get into college. Not everybody has that, and I believe that I've been able to help in that aspect of it, and I look at it as small deposits that I make into the youth, and then hopefully they can be a positive impact for our community.
One of the things that I saw is that there was a workout going on, and I would have been sweating like crazy because I was in a suit coat and everything too, but they were doing some workouts, and one of the cool things that I saw is that some of these kids were extremely tired. And, of course, the thought is if it's extremely intense workout, you give up. But they did not. They kept on encouraging each other. And I mean, learning that at that age is such a key component, because that's just this part when they're youngsters. But when they get into be, our age, if all of a sudden something doesn't go right, well, that's where we should start encouraging people, never give up type of attitude.
Correct. And we, believe it or not, that's an actual program that we instill in them, and saying, okay, even when we do the ropes, they'll usually do a rotation of 3. One person holds the clock, the other person rests, the other does the ropes, and the one holding the clock and the one resting have to encourage the one to know how much time is left on his rope exercise.
That's pretty
And so then they motivate them so they can't quit. And so then they know how many sets are left, and then when that rotation's done, then they go on something else. So we force them to one, work as a team, and 2, motivate and encourage your part of your team, because I share with them, sometimes they don't say the numbers out loud or together, and I say, hey, we're a team, and so then that helps build a good team overall and effort, and I'm happy and grateful that I've been able to do that, and grateful for a lot of our donors, because we couldn't continue without the donors that we have here in Muscatine.
And hopefully that mentality becomes contagious to the people, the other students that they touch at the school. So
Yes, it has been.
how does your role as County Board of Supervisor help our community and county?
Well, I think that for me, one of the greatest things that I've really felt like I've added to the county board is I have an enormous amount of experience that's probably not normal for probably board supervisors or city council, when it comes with a lot of engineering background in construction and underground water piping and drinking water wells for communities, and also gaining the ability to work on a lot of things that the community, I think, really needs. So I'm passionate about trails. I'm passionate about bi-state in trails and overall expanding the county with trails. One of the reviews that I knew that we had from our collaboration group was, if somebody were to come to Muscatine, where would you take them? And a lot of the things that the people were saying, well, gosh, I think I would take them on the trails and take them around town. like that way they could see a little bit of everything. But it really made me think, like, what would I do? And so then I started really kind of saying, I love the trails, I love driving, I love riding on them. And so then that's why I've been on the trails committee ever since I've been on the county board. I've been on the bi-state trails as well too, and then even on a board that goes the American. Oh, it's going to come to me. It's called. I'm only there every once a quarter. It's basically a trail that goes all the way across the country, but it's going to come through Muscatine. And coming through West Liberty is what I'm trying to push for.
No, yeah, I think that's
through,
great.
through Buffalo all the way from 22. But so then the whole point is that I'm able to be involved in a lot of those groups that I believe that continue to add value. I'm also seeing some of the things from like I was on in the board supervisor. You rotate into different committees and commissions. Sometimes you're not on the same committee. I was on the chamber last year. I'm now only on, like, I sit on the public health meeting for looking for ways that to 5S to create more savings on their group. And so I'm able to sit on some, not all of them, but it's nice because I'm able to see a lot of the different things that the county is doing. And I can tell you that a lot of times I put in input only when I think I'm able to add something, and I always get positive feedback from it. And so to me, it makes me feel that I'm adding to it, and I see the community going in the right steps to say, hey, what about, maybe what if we did, instead of trying to fill out this, feedbacks form, why don't we do like a QR code? Could we do that? Could that get more feedback on what we got to do to improve in our public health programs? Things like that. I was just in a meeting on that. Now they're implementing a program that I think is going to be very similar to help in our public health programs like that.
That's great. That's great. And one other thing, the last question I was going to ask you is, pretty unique situation some time ago when you had a dual, you were city council and also a board supervisor, county board supervisor. Right. How do you feel like having those dual roles made Muscatine better?
Well, it was very unique. I don't think anybody had ever done that before. It was extremely time sensitive for me because it took a lot of my time. But I was able to really see a little bit of both sides, especially throughout the time. And we never really, I think, had anything that I had to vote on or recuse myself from. But it really helped me build better relationships with, I believe, with all of the groups. And I think that is another one of the positives that I think that I have been able to add to a county board is I'm able to really connect with city council, with the mayors, with the local officials in the cities, and I believe that has only helped our county overall. And I think that knowing that I had that experience and I was able to sit on both boards at the same simultaneously, that has only added more to, I think, our continuing to be able to collaborate as a team and to hopefully continue to reach our goals.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, and thank you all for watching. Really appreciate you taking time to watch this. And again, thank you, Santos, and then also Lieutenant Eurak for being on the show today, and we'll see you next week. And if you have any questions or have any feedback or anything you'd like to see on the show in the future, please send us an email to bbark@muscatineiowa.gov. And we'll see you next week, and be your best, and thank you so much.